You're listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, giving you weekly sports analysis, opinions, and discussion. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and J-Raff.
Well, good Sunday afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 199th episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mays, alongside of me, co-host J-Raff.
Yeah, crazy weekend here so far, and hopefully, I'm waiting to get plowed back in, but hopefully I have enough snow removal done so that I can sit down and enjoy the games this afternoon and evening.
Yeah, we weren't sure we were going to be able to do this because,
it's rare that the text from you says, "Can you make it over?" And we're not just referring to time availability.
No, literally, can you get yourself here? Why is that? Well, for those of you that don't know, we're located just outside of Reading, Pennsylvania, and if you've been watching any news coverage whatsoever, especially any national news, a lot of it was focused on Winter Storm, what the Weather Channel called Jonas, and it hammered the East Coast from actually into the Carolinas up through Virginia, D.C., Baltimore, Delaware, Jersey, New York, parts of New England, the lower parts of Massachusetts got a bit, but Pennsylvania got hit really, really hard, harder than they anticipated.
Yeah, all week, jokingly, I knew we were going to get some snow, but jokingly I kept telling all the kids at school that it's just going to be rain. It's just going to be rain. Don't get your hopes up. It's just going to be rain. And I think this was the way of, getting back at me for being sarcastic all week.
Yeah, it could be.
Because it was not.
No, it was not in any sense of the imagination. They originally thought that Virginia through D.C. and into Baltimore was going to be the target, and they got a good amount too. They've got more than 2 feet, in, depending on what area you're looking at the measurements, but the track shifted farther north, and Pennsylvania got destroyed.
It just sat here for 6 hours yesterday.
And from Allentown down to Gettysburg, a large swath in there got at least 2 feet. I know there was a train spotter in Cornwall Terrace that recorded 26 inches. There was a train spotter in Wyomissing with 30, and up in Allentown, a meteorologist recorded 32. So this ended up being the snowiest day and storm in Allentown history. That history goes back to 1888, by the way. And Reading, it'll go down to, as I think, possibly maybe the second, depending on what the official reading from the airport is. So, yeah, we got hit pretty hard, a lot harder than people thought. And thankfully, it shut down everything yesterday, which I'm not thankful for that. But now that we're into Sunday, people are clearing out. The roads are better. They're still not ideal, but they're better.
It's a good day today for clearing out, too. Sun's out. Sun's bright. Shocker, after the front goes through. It's nice and clear. It's not super windy today. There is a bit of a breeze, but for the most part, people are able to get out and start clearing away. But there's so much snow. I was saying, on the way over, the roads are hit or miss, literally main roads, side roads, everything. Some spots are great, some spots are not. And there'll be a lot of melt today, but I don't think, at least the temperature gauge in my car, which isn't the most accurate, but it's at least gives you an idea, was still below freezing. So once that sun goes down, that can be a little treacherous.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem.
With that melt, because the melt happening today is from the light and energy being absorbed by the street and everything, not so much just the temperature being above freezing.
Right. So it's interesting what's going to happen here the next few days. I know this wasn't quite as big as the blizzard of 96.
And the key is, people are like, oh, we need warm weather. No, you don't want it too warm too quick, because that creates all kinds of problems too.
This wasn't quite as big as the blizzard of 96, where we got 3 feet of snow.
We're sitting there yesterday, and I'm like, this is the biggest snow of my adult life that I've been in.
Yeah.
Because those other ones were when we were in school.
Right. We got 2 big ones back-to-back in 2010. They were quite large, from the 5th to 7th, and I think then the 8th to 9th, they were literally 5th to 6th, and then 8th to 9th, they were literally 2 days apart. One I think was 17 and another 21, but when they're split up like that, you get time to clear out, and it's not as bad. So that was 38 inches of snow in a week, but there was time.
That is crazy.
There was time to dig out and whatnot. This one was a whole bunch at one time. We weren't expecting it, so it caught people off guard. But anyways, let's move on. I know we were going to keep it a little short this week with what's going on and everything else that happens to happen today. So we're going to dive right in. Obviously, this is the weekend of the NFL Conference Championship games. The first one starts, I believe, just after 3 o'clock, and that is the big one in the AFC, where the 2-seed New England Patriots are traveling to the 1-seed Denver Broncos. A lot of like you mentioned before the show started, a lot of people seem to be piling on the bandwagon for the Patriots, and a lot of people, I'm sure, understand why with how much of a juggernaut the Patriots have been over the last 15 years. But I think people are selling Denver a little bit short. We'll get into discussing
completely
them.
Agree.
And you mentioned that before. People were selling Pittsburgh short against Denver, and for a while it looked like Pittsburgh was going to win last week. Then the next game is at 6:40 down in Carolinas, who did get a little bit of this wintry weather yesterday. Now, it wasn't as big as what we got here, but when you get it that far south, it's crippling no matter what happens.
And if you think about last week, they were having footing issues on the field because they had put new turf in because of some weather issues in Carolina. So you can look for maybe more of the same there today, which tends to favor, it's hard to say, but it tends to favor a team like Carolina that's going to just can ground and pound you, as opposed to Arizona, which has, as of late, at least struggled in a lot of that aspect of their game. I know you have, both teams in certain areas struggle with short yardage third downs. So it could be an interesting dynamic there as that plays out. So we'll have to wait and see. But again, the first game is Denver hosting New England in what could be, and everybody says it could be, but who knows? We could see it again next year in the regular season. So who knows? But it could be the last Manning versus Brady saga. When they talk about last week, they were trying to hype up the Russell Wilson and Cam Newton, and I get that. I think they've met 6 times now or something, including 2 or 3 times in the playoffs already. So there's a big push there that could be the next one, just because they played a lot early on. Like they were looking for those scenarios, because you don't always get those matchups because both teams have to be good, and all those things. And so while this one is coming to a close, regardless of whether they do end up meeting again in the future, which doesn't necessarily look like that, but you never know.
Yeah, we really don't know.
But at the same time, I think that Cam Newton, Russell Wilson saga, they have a long way to go to be considered on a level playing field with Brady and Manning. I'm not sure anyone could ever get to that playing field, that level playing field, because between the two of them, you have 2 of the best quarterbacks
to
ever
play the game. Yeah.
And so when you talk about that, it's a little different. But Cam and Russell, if you look at that being said, if Carolina were to win today, then you will have had one of those quarterbacks in each of the last 3 Super Bowls, I think, for the NFC. So they talk about those statistics in the AFC about how Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady have appeared in all but like 1 or 2 of the.
Just one.
I think it's one, and it's Joe Flacco, right? Who is in the same division as Ben Roethlisberger. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But those 4 quarterbacks, if you throw Flacco in, have accounted for every appearance since like the early 2000s.
Well, right, because it's been Patriots, Steelers, Colts, Broncos, every single year, one of those 4 teams since, 2001, I guess, 2001 season, 2002 Super Bowl, except for Flacco and the Ravens.
Right, exactly.
So there's been 5 teams in the AFC to make the Super Bowl.
So everybody talks about parity in the NFL. It's kind of...
It depends on how you want to define it. Do you want to define it as
there are
teams
different,
making the playoffs,
right,
winning
if there
divisions?
are different average, I'd say that middle third of teams, are they different every year? Is there a lot of turnover there? Yeah, absolutely. The top of the top, or the top 4 or 5 teams different every year? There's not as much turnover. I'd say 2 or 3 of those teams are the same year in, year out, which is great for those teams. That's a testament to what they're doing, and kind of a knock on what the other teams are doing. It's just, you hear, oh, anybody can win it. Well, that's kind of true, but these teams are doing whatever it takes better than the other teams.
So more of the same in the AFC, but a little bit different in the NFC. Like I said, the game starts at 6:40 in Carolina, but they're hosting the Cardinals. Now, I know the Cardinals were there following, the 2009 season, I believe it was. So, that's 6 years ago. The Cardinals made the Super Bowl, kind of surprised everyone, playing the Steelers, and we all know how that one ended up. Panthers haven't been there in 10 years, and they're looking for their second ever trip to the Super Bowl. This, I believe, is their third NFC Championship game appearance. And but you don't see them quite as often. So I think a lot of people are more interested in what's coming in the NFC because they feel like AFC, we've seen it before. NFC, a little bit different. I know there are some people, though, that feel that the way about the Panthers as I have about the Seahawks. I talked to someone this week who was saying they didn't want to see the Panthers in there because they don't like Cam Newton and the attitude down there.
And every time, and I get it. And people don't have to like that, but every time I hear that, I kind of want the Panthers to win more. I get it, and it's not everybody's thing. It doesn't have to be everybody's thing, but I love when it's the first half last week was exciting because you're just like, wow, it was literally a show. And one of the things I heard, and I thought it was interesting, was that whole team has taken on that personality. It's not just Cam Newton.
And this is a little bit of deja vu for me and this is what I explained to the guy. Now, the only reason that I didn't root for the Seahawks 2 years ago was because they were playing Manning. And I wanted Manning to win and go out on top like that. Otherwise, I didn't really care. The Seahawks had been there about a decade ago, losing to the Steelers and whatnot. They haven't really been that successful. If they were playing Brady, I absolutely would have been cheering for the Seahawks. But I wanted Manning to win. But I didn't like the way the Seahawks carried themselves. I don't like Pete Carroll and still don't. The cockiness and attitude that emanates from them at times, it's just off-putting to me. I don't hate them, but But last year I went as far as actually rooting for the Patriots over them. So that last year was not a great Super Bowl matchup for me because I wasn't excited about doing that. But you got to pick a team to have fun.
I can't imagine what Cam Newton would have to do today to make me root for the Patriots over him.
Right,
I get it. I get it.
That's where I'm going with this. Is I'm cool with the Panthers right now. I think they got a little bit of an attitude going on right now.
Absolutely.
But it hasn't rubbed me the wrong way yet.
Right.
They need to win the Super Bowl now because if they lose today or they lose in the Super Bowl and they come back next year with the same attitude like the Seahawks did, it's going to start wearing on people, including me.
Right.
So they have to capitalize on this right now, like the Seahawks did 2 years ago.
Right.
They
don't
need
get
to
this
capitalize
chance
now
all the time. Look, if Cam is nicked up like he was last year, all of a sudden you're probably not in this position they're in today.
And Josh Norman's going to need a new contract soon.
Right. I saw a picture.
How long can Thomas Davis
I didn't
play?
realize. I think Josh Norman was part of the fight that Cam Newton was in preseason. Not maybe this year, but the year before when he got into the fight in preseason. It might have been this year. And it said something like Cam Newton carrying his team, even beating the greatness into Josh Norman.
whatever do it. Just win, baby.
Right.
So that's where we're at. Before we go on and talk a little bit more about the games, let's get to the email. We have an email from Rich in Massachusetts. He's sitting up there and not quite as snowy. I'll say Boston area. It's not quite Boston, but he's up in East Bridgewater. And they only had 9 inches of snow, where we, as I told them, 26 inches of snow. So a little bit more, but they got hammered last year. So they're absolutely thankful that hasn't happened yet, although I've already hearing that there's a storm coming at the end of this week.
That's what I've heard.
And
I tried to block that out.
And that February is supposed to be a disaster.
Oh, fantastic.
So we'll
great, grand, wonderful.
One day at a time for now. But anyways, so the email from Rich in Massachusetts, this is kind of about last week's show. I guess he got to listen to it on demand if he wasn't listening live. Rich says, let me get this right. Did you both say anyone but the Patriots? I wasn't even sure, even though I think I heard it about 8 or 9 times. By now, since I think your show will be on after the Sunday games are over, incorrect. And if things went right, I hope you're saying anyone but the Patriots a few more times. Obviously, that alluding to the fact that he wants and thinks the Patriots will beat the Broncos tonight and will have us saying, please not the Patriots winning the Super Bowl. We talked a little bit about jerseys at the end of the show last week, and Rich points out, now as far as jerseys go, I do have a Carolina Collins jersey that still fits me, so I know it will fit either one of you if you wish to borrow it. Plus, I have a Bledsoe number 11, a Brewski number 54, and a Gronk number 87 to borrow if you wish. Now, that is borrow, not burn. I'd also like to point out, that this is me speaking here, that I also have a Bledsoe number 11 jersey and a Brewski number 54 I do not have a Gronkowski jersey. The Bledsoe is that vintage, like it's the Flying Elvis, but the original Flying Elvis, not with the navy, with the blue and the stripes that they had. My Brewski is the one I wore last year, and I got that mostly because he was a linebacker that was number 54, because that's my deal. And that was before I completely hated the Patriots.
Unacceptable.
But no, I don't need to borrow any Patriots jerseys. I'm good there, thanks. Yeah. I wish I could find my Collins jersey, though, especially if they would win today.
That would be cool.
So, thanks, Rich, for the email. But do you have anything to say for him?
No, and I'm honestly surprised it was probably only 8 or 9 times. He might,
but 8 or 9 times each, I think.
Yeah, and out loud. Like I was thinking it a lot more.
Thinking it the whole time, right?
But although we'll get into it a little bit, but I'm not sure exactly that's going to happen. He may hear it a few more times over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it's possible. So, let's talk about his game and what we think could happen, what we want to happen. I mean, everyone knows what we want to happen. We want the Broncos to win.
Right.
So let's talk about what we think will happen and why. So this is the first game starting in about an hour and a half out in Denver. It's supposed to be a beautiful day. The weather shouldn't really impact anyone. Now, the natural elements that go there, they say sometimes can impact people. Maybe that's one of the reasons that Tom Brady is only, I think, 2-4 at Mile High out in Denver.
Including a loss to
Brock
Osweiler, which is another interesting dynamic for the game.
So, but like we mentioned when we started the show, it really seems that very few people are giving Denver much of a chance here. I know the betting last time I saw, 70% of people were going New England. Now, I don't even know what the line is.
And that's an interesting thing, because I'm trying to think what it was. Last week, I believe, most of the money was on, I shouldn't say most of the money. Most of the bets were on Seattle, I think. I don't remember, but
because they were probably
the pros were betting on Seattle. I think it was what it was. The pros were betting on Seattle. Most of the money was going on Carolina. Most of the number of bets were going on Carolina. And they talk about, there are some guys that kind of go on that whatever way the public is betting, go against it. Now I don't necessarily agree with that, but
because Vegas rare makes that money because Vegas is better at it.
It's rare that you see this, where in the AFC Championship game, there's just so much
action on one time.
Action on one team. Right. Now, we say that. It could very easily, we're talking tonight, in text, and just be like, everybody, how did we not see this coming? Like, everybody saw it coming. Like, how did we not see it coming? I just think that while the Patriots have again, I would say it's kind of like some of the games we talked about last week. If it's a blowout, I think it's going to be a blowout in New England's favor. I think we could very well get a game that's closer than a lot of people imagine, and that, obviously anyone can win it. That's exactly what happened last week with Pittsburgh. And I believe last week on our show I said, if it's a blowout, I think Pittsburgh's going to be winning a blowout. If it's a close game, that favors Denver. Because this isn't the Peyton Manning running gun teams
from 2 years ago.
Right. This is Peyton Manning check you into the right run, make the short pass. Now the key is going to be, can New England defend the short pass and the run? If they can, Denver's in trouble. I don't know if they're going to be able to score. They need touchdowns. They can't get field goals like they did last week.
Right.
On the other side, can they defend the short pass? Because it's not like New England's been lighting it up down the field a la the Randy Moss years, and they don't even try to run.
Right.
So it's the short passing, which we often talk about, substitutes for the run game a lot of times. How are the teams going to defend that? And personnel-wise, Denver is better suited, I think, to defend that. Now, will they? I don't know. We've seen Tom Brady go against good defensive personnel all the time and rip them to shreds how many times, And it's also hard to hit Brady and sack him when he's throwing the ball from I think somebody was saying every 1.2 seconds is when he's getting rid of the ball. It's 1.2 and the ball's out. Or it's something absurd. But somebody said if you can slow him down a half second, right? So if you can just get up in coverage and cause him to hold the ball for a half second, you go from that. This just shows you how crazy quick they get rid of the ball in the NFL. He would go from having the fastest time to get the ball out of his hands to the slowest.
Wow.
Half a second is the difference between being so quick with the ball and being the slowest with the ball. That amazed me that it was that close. I thought it might be closer to maybe 3/4 or a full second, but he would drop to last
It's amazing now that we're thinking as Peyton Manning as mostly a game manager than the guy that'll win you games. Not to say he can't win you games, but like he's now Trent Dilfer,
right?
Just with the better
like,
history.
When I look at it last week, the incompletions, a lot of incompletions weren't his fault last week. They were dropping so many passes, and now. To be fair, Julian Edelman had 3 drops alone last week. It wasn't like Tom Brady's guys were catching the ball great last week either. But I think Denver had like 700 drops or so. It was absurd.
It's interesting to me to see where we're at from. Just thinking back to like week 8.
Yeah.
Around that time, within a couple weeks here and there, Peyton Manning was going to be injured and benched.
Yep.
The Patriots were undefeated. I don't know how many people thought we'd get to this point to have a Manning-Brady showdown in the AFC Championship, and it to be in Denver, not in New England.
Right.
But New England faded down the stretch. Now, they got the win last week that they needed when it counted. They got it.
But you can't tell me that they weren't trying to beat Miami Week 17 to have this game in New England instead of in Denver.
Right, and that was an ugly loss for them.
Right. So when they've had to run the ball, because they were trying to run in that game, when they've had to run the ball, they aren't able to. Now, they shouldn't be able to run it against Denver, but I've seen over and over again New England come out and everybody expects them to pass like crazy, and they run for 200 yards. I've seen it, but I've seen them do like what they did last week too, and first 18 plays of the game are all passes. Mm-hmm. An interesting dynamic, and I didn't realize this, but you mentioned it last week that Edelman, was kind of questionable, had an X-ray on his foot. He says he's fine. He's absolutely going to play.
Right, but what's hanging
But
around there?
somebody brought up a good point. I never had an X-ray because nothing was wrong.
Right, yeah.
Ever.
Well, look at you see this every year at the end of the year. Now, some teams let it get out, others hide it, but how many Steelers were going in for surgery after they lost?
Yeah.
I think it was at least a handful.
Yeah.
So how many Patriots or Broncos are we going to hear? Now, the Broncos seem to be really healthy, and actually, I think the NFC team's really healthy. The ones that beat up is New England.
Right.
How's that going to play out?
Right. And Denver wants to play a physical game. That wasn't always the MO of Peyton Manning teams, but they want to play a physical game. They want to run the ball. They want to have some short passes, maybe take a shot or two deep against man coverage, where that's where they complain about Manning, but when he was missing last week, he was missing out of bounds. That's where you want him to miss.
Not in the middle of the field.
You're going to miss out of bounds or miss short. Cut your losses, play good defense. That's what they need to do. The problem is playing good defense against a banged-up Steelers team and playing good defense against a banged-up team but still healthy Tom Brady, completely different.
It's too bad that Peyton Manning didn't have this type of Broncos defense in 2012 and 2013.
Yeah.
2012, they probably wouldn't have succumbed to the miracle that was Flacco and the Ravens.
Right.
2013,
right.
they probably are a better matchup for the Seahawks.
A playoff loss, and people are like, he threw the pick in overtime. Yeah, it only got the overtime because his defense screwed it up. Anyone. He scored 30-some points in regulation. He scored 35 points in regulation.
How many times have we said, if I score 21, I should win the game?
Right.
Because I want my defense to hold them to 20 or
honestly,
less.
If they need to hold New England under 24.
Yes.
And they need to get...
We saw them score 26 against Pittsburgh last week. And that they fought for all 26 that they got.
Right. I'm just intrigued. I'll be intrigued to see if they can get pressure on Brady. If they can crowd the line and get pressure, then they've got a shot. If he at the end of the first quarter has a clean uniform, it's going to be a long day for Denver, I think. Unless they can, you never know though, because if you take some of those runs and they get an 8-minute drive for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. Last week they were having those long drives and getting field goals. You need touchdowns on those. So we'll kind of have to wait and see how that plays out. But
all right, I'm gonna do something here that we've not done for a while, and definitely didn't do in the regular season because what's the point of predicting each game?
Right.
But it's the last 2 games. The last time we're gonna see 4 teams play. So I'm gonna go through exactly what I think is gonna happen.
Okay.
Or at least just the scores and whatnot. I'm gonna go with a Broncos win, just because that's who I picked.
I would love to be. I'd love for you to be right.
And I'm sure some of that has to do with I don't want to see the Patriots there again.
Right.
Both for my hatred toward my Dolphins rival, and also I want to see someone new in there.
Right.
New.
Right.
They were just there a couple of years ago, but I can take the Broncos.
A new story, as opposed to Brady and Belichick, yet again the best.
Well, I know, and not that the Manning stuff won't be overdone as well, but I want to see Manning win again and go out and top
Right.
and be done like Elway did, like his boss did. So I'm going to go with the Broncos win, but one for the ages. Okay, I think it's going to be.
Oh my gosh, it'll be incredible.
In the low mid-20s area.
I'd love for it to be like the first time you beat them in the playoffs to go to the Super Bowl the first time.
It's similar. I'm going to have 3 Gronkowski field goals. That's touchdown from Gronk.
That's big if they can force field goals.
And some kind of rushing touchdown, whether it, they're going to get down deep and they're going to Brady sneak. An end around, whether it's to one of this probably 7 running backs they have on the roster because of all the injuries. You never know. Is it going to be White? Is it going to be Jackson? Is it going to be who's the other guy up there now?
I don't even.
They're like the Steelers. They're on like their 4th and 5th guys, but so some kind of rushing touchdown, a touchdown to Gronkowski because no one can stop him. 3 Gostkowski field goals, all extra points good, no 2-point conversion, so 23. Broncos with 3 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 2 in the air. I'm not gonna pick out who's gonna get them
because you don't know.
I'll say 1. That'd be awesome. I'll say 1 to Thomas for sure. Rushing touchdown. Is it gonna be? Is it gonna be Hillman or is it gonna be Anderson?
It'll be Anderson.
I'm gonna go Anderson. Yeah. And I don't know. I won't pick up the second Broncos passing touchdown, but Manning will have 2. But Manning will drive the team down the field for a last-second field goal by McManus to win it, 24-23. That's my prediction.
Place will go nuts. My sister and my brother-in-law left Friday night. They had a red eye and flights got crazy. Yeah, so they were supposed to be flying through JFK to the Caribbean. They didn't, but shout out to JetBlue. They were really good to them. They canceled their flight a full day beforehand, but had their flight had them rebooked on another flight through Boston. So they actually left earlier from Denver. There was an hour later. There was an hour longer than what it was supposed to be layover in Boston than what they were supposed to have in New York, but they were able to get out of Boston fine.
Boston got hit.
Right, and they were able to get to St. Lucia yesterday. So
nice.
They were texting us saying, I hope we're able to find the game on somewhere down there. I'm like, absolutely. And I told them where the sports bar is located because they're going to the same resort that Jamie and I did. We're like, there's a sports bar. You hit it up. I'm sure they'll have it on.
So I know you're thinking Broncos victory too.
Well, I'm rooting for. I think I'm gonna go with New England. Okay. I think New England's gonna do it.
Do you think you said if it's a blowout it'll be New England? Do you think New England's gonna take it to them?
I think it'll be close for a while, and I think New England scores and wins by 10. And I think they win
27-17 or something.
Right, yeah, 27-17, 31-17. Something in there, that 10 to 14 range, where it's kind of like going down the stretch. And I don't want that to happen. I just feel like I don't know how they're going to stop the short passing game of the Patriots.
We know Chris Harris was beat up,
right?
And
and while I think if they can get pressure on Brady, but when he's throwing it so quickly, it doesn't really matter.
Having DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller helps.
Yeah,
but you got to have other guys.
What they need them to drop a few passes like they did last week. They need to hit him a few times, get a few deflected passes. If you can get Brady yelling at his own guys,
yes, that's exactly what we're going to say. You need to get in Brady's head. I'm not going to subscribe to the Danny Cannell bounty patrol or whatever he was condoning, but you need to hit Brady legally,
right?
Because I'm not going to get into that gray area stuff. So he throws the ball in 1.2 seconds. If you're there at 1.3, you should deck it.
Right. Yeah.
Because you're going to hit him as he's throwing.
Right.
You need to level him.
Right.
So just maybe you're not getting the sack. If you're rushing it though, that's good. And if you're beating him,
right.
It's going to get to him. He's going to start yelling at his line, yelling at his receivers.
Right.
You got to get in his head.
That's where the weakness is, the line. At least
they get injuries and the depth is
and so you've got to get going there, and put it on them. And you don't see rotations on the offensive line like you do on defensive line. Like wear those guys down in the altitude, and that's where
they're not used to.
Right, and wear them down on defense so that you can get those running drives, just take it out of them, and the cornerbacks are down the field after running every time, that's when you're going to be able to pick them apart on those short passes. So I think people are counting Denver out way too early. I think everything, when I look at it, I feel like New England should win, but I honestly don't know that they're the better team. I think they've got the better quarterback right now. Like, for a long time, yeah, like, I'd argue that Peyton Manning. But, like, you can't really argue that Tom Brady isn't better than Peyton Manning right now. And I just don't know if they can stop Gronk and the other guys. So watching that foot injury for Edelman and some of those things, those will be big. If that gets rolled up on early or something like that, you never know. So we'll have to wait and see. I'd love for the Broncos to win. I think the Patriots win. Not in a full-on blowout, but I think they have it under control at the end.
Now, I went first for the AFC, so I'll let you go first, NFC. How do you see the NFC Championship going down between the Panthers and Cardinals?
Here, all these people are kind of discounting the Cardinals because they haven't looked like themselves for a little while here. I think people are putting too much into last week. Last week, the last 2 weeks, you saw the Packers teams that everybody expected to see.
Exactly.
So I think people are discounting the Cardinals a little too much here. I picked the Panthers. I'm going to stick with the Panthers. I think people are overblowing their second half struggles. Now, that being said, they may give up points in the second half, but they're giving it to the second best team in the NFC. I don't think they're going to give up 30-some points in the second half. I think their biggest struggle in terms of second half things right now is just letting off the gas. When you're up 31-0 in the divisional round after you had the bye, it's hard to come out and keep your foot on the pedal. I know everybody's saying it, and everybody knows. How can it be that difficult? It's just different. It's different knowing,
you have no idea.
It's just different knowing I can screw up 3 or 4 times, and it won't matter. And it didn't matter. Now, it got close. It got close to mattering, but they made plays when they had to. They made plays when they had to. They rose to the occasion, which is harder to do than to just come out and be flat for the whole second half. So I think the Panthers get it done. I think it's a close game, but I think the Panthers are able to run it on Arizona. I don't know. I think they're going to cause some problems for Arizona in terms of protection. I think Arizona will make some big plays down the field because Carolina's secondary is beat up, and they've run through some guys there. I think they're going to struggle. I'm going to go Panthers. I'm going to say 27-21 Panthers.
All right, so you're going rematch of the 05 Super Bowl.
Yeah.
One, I guess that was the 04 season, the 05 Super Bowl. No, 03 season, 04 Super Bowl, where the Patriots beat the Panthers on the last-second field goal by Adam Vinatieri. So, again, last week we mentioned that if certain things happen, it'd be the first time since the year the Eagles went to the Super Bowl following the 04 season, the 05 Super Bowl, that 1 and 2 seeds both made the conference championships. Well, here we are. Both 1 and 2s are there. You're going with you're going with the 1 seed from the NFC, but the 2 seed from the AFC.
Which, when you look at it from the beginning, you're always like, well, that won't happen. It's like going chalk in the NCAA bracket the whole way through. That's not going to happen. Well, sometimes it does. Sometimes there's a reason they're the 1 seeds.
If we get Panthers Broncos, it'll be the both 1 seeds going at it. I don't have the time to pull that up right now. I don't know when the last time that happened was. It probably wasn't as far back as a decade ago, I'm thinking. So you went with 2 from AFC, 1 versus NFC. I'm actually opposite. I'm going Cardinals in NFC. So they're the 2 seed against the 1 seed Broncos. So we both have a 1-2 matchup. It's just the exact opposite. So
I'd be okay. I'd be more than okay with your picks being right.
Cardinals, Broncos.
Yeah, because then you get, and somebody pointed this out, I don't think it was you, we may have talked about it, but then either way next week, or in 2 weeks,
everyone's just kind of
Larry Fitzgerald gets his ring finally, Carson Palmer finally gets his, or Peyton Manning wins and goes out on top.
Right.
Either one, I'm happy if it ends up with yours. And honestly, if Carolina wins, I could do the same thing.
As long just like my
this is for you, Uncle Rich.
As long as we're not saying anybody but the Patriots after the games are over tonight. Because if it's Broncos, if the Broncos win this afternoon, I don't care what happens in the NFC.
It's great.
I want the Cardinals. I think I want the Cardinals. But if it's the Panthers, fine.
Okay.
I have no qualms with that whatsoever. But I'm going to go Cardinals, and I think they surprise some people. I don't know if this is more of the Seahawks syndrome getting me down and just thinking like you said, I don't want to overblow what happened to the Panthers in the last week, but like it showed some kind of weakness in there. And I know how difficult it is to play with that lead in a professional environment like that. It's tough. I don't know from experience, but we've seen it happen. That's what I mean.
From my playing days.
From my playing days in the NFL. No, but we've seen it happen many times. We saw it with this team all year. When they have a big lead like that, they have a letdown.
Right.
So it happens to all the teams that have that. And when I say attitude, I don't mean in a negative connotation. I'm just saying in that type of attitude, that supreme confidence, sometimes they think they're going to win, which is a fine mentality to have. But then when you get into a dogfight, they start to cave. And we've seen that really hinder the Seahawks in the past.
Right, and that's where it's going to be interesting.
And I think that's going to happen with the Panthers. That's what
interesting to see the Panthers. Like I would like to think that some of those now they have that close end of game experience, but it's different when you're hanging on for dear life as opposed to just like, all right, we need to go down for a score here. Now, I think against the Giants they did have to go down for a score, but that was a crazy game for lots of reasons. I don't know. It's interesting. You talk about the kind of that mentality that the Panthers have. If my picks are right, if it's Panthers against New England, then you'll have what I believe are the two most confident quarterbacks in the league. In terms of now, I understand everybody talks about if you're a pro quarterback, you have to have that. Some level of that mentality because
the type 1 of type 1 or type A,
right,
whatever
because you have to think you're the best. If you have any doubt, well, you're already beat.
Succeed,
right, you're already beat at that point. And I understand that. I don't necessarily have experienced that because I haven't been at that level.
Right.
But I understand where that's coming from. Like you're one of the best, and if you're playing here, you could argue, that you're on. There's 32 of these jobs in the world, and you are the best. Like that's your mentality. You're the best one in the world at what you do. And
one of
both
them
of them think
is
they're right
to win the MVP when that's announced the day before the Super Bowl.
Probably going to be 1 and 2. Like probably going to be 1 and 2.
Very good chance. I know things are going kind of like everyone's piling on the Patriots to win. I don't think everyone's piling on the Panthers to win, but I think a lot of people are pointing out that why they should win.
Right.
But like Arizona not playing on their home field, traveling across the country, the Panthers field being beat up that they're somewhat used to. Cardinals not so much.
Right. They play on perfect field.
Yeah, which is rolled out in the desert to get sun.
Right.
It's just this incredible atmosphere down in the stadium. Not going to be like that in Carolina.
No.
There's just something definitely saying to me, both home teams will not win. One of them is going down. I know logic probably say it should be the Broncos because of everything pulling for the Patriots, but hey, I'll be a contrarian this week and I'll go the opposite of what everyone's thinking. I'm just going to say Broncos, Cardinals is my Super Bowl prediction.
And I have Patriots, Panthers.
Oh, and the game itself, the Cardinals-Panthers game, I think will be. I think we're going to see. I don't want to say a breakdown on Cam Newton's part, but I think the offense is going to struggle if they can't run the ball.
I would agree with that.
Because I think the Cardinals secondary is underrated and will stop what the Panthers throw at them if they can cover Greg Olsen.
Yeah.
Because Ginn's beat up just kind of like Edelman for the Patriots. Ginn's beat up for the Panthers. And I think that if Stewart, Tolbert, Artis Payne, semi-local product from, I believe, Harrisburg area. If they shut the Panthers running down, and that goes for Newton too.
Is he a McDevitt
I think
player?
so.
I think so.
If they shut the rushing group, those three guys at Newton, if they can hold that and make him pass, Newton can do it, but if their receivers are covered, he can't do it,
Right. So
that's why I'm leaning Cardinals. I think it's going to be like 28-20.
And I would love if your predictions work out for multiple reasons. One, it would be 2 great games, two awesome games.
24-23.
And I'd love to see that. We saw a dud of a game in the AFC Championship last year.
Yeah, blowout.
I hope you're right. Just a quick side note, you were talking about Cam Newton, and I mentioned this on the air before, but I have so much fun watching him throw the ball. He throws it so hard, and it looks like a perfect spiral. He's just unbelievable. He's an unbelievable athlete back there playing quarterback. It's a lot of fun to see. Again, can't really go wrong with either team in the NFC. Like I'd be happy for players and coaches on both sides. Actually, I'd be happy for Bruce Arians, who I've really the more I've learned about Bruce Arians, the more I like Bruce Arians as a coach. And Ron Rivera, when you and I were calling for him to stay, and they did. And congratulations and a shout out to Panthers organization for just weathering the storm. Weathering the storm, and look where it has you now. Instead of cutting loose and starting all over again with a young quarterback who you try and mold into something he's not. Instead, they let Ron Rivera work his magic. And I know some people are like, it's other people. Agreed. But if you change the head coach, everyone else is changing too.
Right.
The coaching changes we saw this year are the exception. You don't see that. Usually you see a clean house and then you start a whole new system and all those things all over again. And that's not what Carolina did, and they've been rewarded for it. They've been rewarded with success in winning the division, I think 3 out of the last 4 years now.
Something like that, yeah.
And, not always the best teams, but they play well when it matters, and we'll see if they can do it again today for Ron Rivera.
With upheaval in Tampa Bay, again, shockingly, and the inability to hold on to a good start in Atlanta, and who knows what's going on with the cap situation in New Orleans. The Panthers are set up to take it again next year.
Looks like Breeze may actually be there again
next year. Which is just crazy.
With a $30 million cap hit next year. $30 million.
Oh, so that's what we think is going to happen. The games start in an hour. It's a little bit over an hour. We'll see the AFC Championship in Denver with the Patriots.
Get your popcorn ready.
About little less than 5 hours from now, the game will be in Carolina, where the Panthers host the Cardinals. So about 8.5 hours from now, we'll know who's playing in Super Bowl 50.
Yeah, it should be fun.
It's a big one. All right. So anything else to add? Any shout-outs or mentions?
I'm just trying to think. Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay, I'll say one last time. I think I mentioned last week, but Friday was my daughter Natalie's 3rd birthday, so happy birthday to her. One of her wishes was to be able to play in snow, and she's going to get that. We took her out yesterday. She was out for literally like 10 minutes, and most of that was standing in the garage because the wind was blowing the snow so much she hated it.
Today was much better. We had Austin out on like one of the pool behind sleds. He loved it.
Yeah, so we're going to hopefully go out today.
He liked it a lot more than sitting on the snow at the turf at the stadium last year.
At Thanksgiving,
when he was sitting there. Yeah. But he was still real young and pretty much immobile at the time. Yeah. Like, he couldn't really do anything.
Yeah, so. Well, I was out this morning from 9 to 11:15 shoveling my driveway, even with neighbors' help with snowblowers to do the walkway and the driveway entrance that I couldn't finish. I mean, I was exhausted.
That's where I am the neighbor with the snowblower, so I was out and helping. There's a couple elderly neighbors across the street, and there's no way. Like, the one neighbor I went out and did last night, and then I had to do it again today. Right. I wanted to make sure I could manage it with the snowblower, though, and it was questionable both times. Like, it was as high as it could go. But she literally could not open her screen door because there was a 1.5 feet of snow, like, and this is older lady. So I'm glad I had gotten over there. But
the local spotter, like I said, 26 inches in Cornwall Terrace. I would think that was more the same over towards where you live, and then this area of Berks County. So, yeah, it's crazy. So hopefully now we can reap the benefits. A little sun, a little bit of melting, and the snow is more compact. The top layer is very light and fluffy, but it compacted a lot.
Yeah,
overnight.
I know the bottom
was very heavy. But now we can build igloos and snow forts and have snowball fights and hopefully go sledding in the next couple days.
It'll be fun.
So it'll be a lot of fun. But I think that's it for us this week. So thanks for joining us. That wraps up the 199th episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
We hope you tune in every Sunday for our take on sports. Until next time, I'm J-Raff.
And I'm Joe Mays. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. Don't forget, you can download each episode of the show from the podcast section of the iTunes Store. We'll see you next time, and thanks again for listening.